Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is G, Virgo. We're going to look at your May 2023. Let's take a walk together. We have three main things, but for Virgo, it's probably going to be like four main things for you that we're going to discuss. We first have an eclipse happening. Yeah, another eclipse in May, right? We have Mercury we're going to talk about because there's a Mercury retrograde going on. We also have Mars and Pluto, right? And then, well, okay, five things. I lied. We also have Venus energy, a new moon. So we're going to kind of condense all that together. And Virgo, I know you like the details, so I know you can handle this. And yeah, we're just going to start right at the get-go. We're going to talk about Scorpio energy. Okay. So if you've got your chart and I say Scorpio energy, you're looking and you're trying to find out what house number that Scorpio energy is in. And if you're really into astrology, you're going to look for the minutes 14 degrees and 58. 14 degrees and 58 minutes. So you could round it up to 15 degrees, right? Because this is where the eclipse occurs in the sign of Scorpio. It's at 14:58. Now, this eclipse in Scorpio energy, typically for a Virgo rising, Virgo ascendant, Virgo rising and ascendant are the same, one and the same thing. Typically, this is going to be in your third house. Now, I find this super fascinating for Virgos, again, because your third house is a Mercury ruled location, right? The third house typically is Gemini, Mercury, right? One and the same, right? Because Mercury rules Gemini. So the third house is like siblings and coworkers. It's learning, your thirst for learning. That's why Virgo ascendants, Virgo risings have this like unsatiable desire to dig for more information, right? Now, if you're listening and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I'm a Virgo rising, just comment to me and I'll help you out in any way that I can. We'll get your chart and we'll figure out what your rising sign is. Because if you're a Virgo birthday, which is a Virgo sun sign, okay, this video, you can continue watching it, okay? A lot of this will make sense for you, but it just might not be spot on as far as the timing of the things that I'm going to talk about. And that's where knowing what your rising sign is, that's where that comes into play. And that's why many times, especially on YouTube, people watch videos because I get people comment to me all the time. Well, I've watched other videos on other channels, and whenever I watch for this sign, it matches or it doesn't match, right? And so people, we're complex individuals. We're complex. Many of us have multiple signs in one house of our chart because my first house can be this big. Your first house can be this big. So in other words, you can be a Virgo rising, but you can also have Libra energy in that house. Yeah, you see, some people I've seen their first house where they can have Virgo, Libra, and a little bit of Scorpio. Right. Because that's how the signs work in succession, right? It goes Virgo, then Libra, then Scorpio, then Sag, it goes around in that circle, right? 1 through 12. So every chart's going to be a little bit different, and which is why the degrees matter. And so if you know that 1458 is not in your third house, comment to me and say, gee, I got my chart right here. I'm looking at it. And it says that 1458 of Scorpio is in my fourth house, or it's in my second house, possibly. It'll always either be the house before it or the house after. That's typically what it will be. Okay. If you think you're a Virgo rising. Okay. Now, what I will do at that point was I will get you on the right, I'll match up the right video for you. Okay. And if we need to go further, if we need more information, like if I need to say, hey, you need to give me your digits so I can see your chart, then we will absolutely do that. And while we're here, if you don't know what I'm talking about and you want your chart, put your digits down below and I will take care of you. Okay. I'll do the best I can for you. All right. Now we're going to talk about this eclipse because in your third house, you have an eclipse. It's Scorpio energy. And Scorpio likes to dig deep. So remember, I was talking about how it will dig for information. Third house, information. So this is Mercury ruled. And this is a big deal because Mercury rules your ascendant, Virgo. Mercury rules Virgo. Right. Yes, you're right. Mercury rules Gemini, the third house, and it rules Virgo. Right. It rules both of them. Some signs have some planets, I should say, have dual rulership, right? There's a couple of them that have them. If you know what they are, let me know below. It's just some fun way to banter back and forth, right? Mercury is thoughts and thinking and communications. It is how I talk to you. It's how I communicate. It's how I think. Maybe I do this all the time. Maybe I prefer to do this. Maybe I prefer to talk text. Like all those different variations of communication are Mercury. Yeah, they're all Mercury energy. And so that's snail mail, that's email. That's also consuming information as well because it's learning. So that's like social media, using social media to get your news, right? Or just sharing information, social platforms. It's totally devices, Mercury, which is why when we have a Mercury retrograde, for some of us, depending upon what sign the retrograde is going through and what house number it's in, we feel it like our shit's not working. This very same device that I've had since 2018, I think it is. I've had this since 2018. And so far in 2023, I have not had any of the issues I had in 2021 and 2022, 2019 even. Yeah, really 2020, 2021. Yeah, like my texting, the stuff was not working. I didn't do anything different. I didn't get any fresh. I didn't do anything different. I was having very difficult Mercury retrogrades. They were like conjunct. They were very specific points in my chart with my own Mercury or with my own third house or my own Pisces energy and the moon and stuff like that, right? Because I remember these retrogrades and they were like hell because I had just started the channel at that time. And so I was starting a channel using devices when Mercury was a really big deal in my chart. And it was my profected planet too, then that year. And it was like everything I did disappeared. My recordings would be gone. I've recorded videos like 4 times, like the same damn video, and the shit would disappear, you know? So my point is, it can be crazy out there. It can be crazy, but know that it's never going to just stay the same. That's the beauty of the astrology. It changes a guarantee. And so when we talk about Mercury, this is important for you as your ruler because Mercury changes all the time. It can flip flop. It can show the duality. It says one thing, so it's the contrarian duality, right? I see this perspective and I see this perspective and I see this perspective, right? So we're like, okay, so which one is it, right? So when you have an eclipse that represents let goes and releases because it's a lunar eclipse, a full moon lunar eclipse. So it means we're ending a cycle and it's in your communications. It's the way you think. It's the way you relate. It's the way you share information. It's the way you consume information. It's the way you learn. And it is the things that you have held on to about your pain, your wounds, your vulnerabilities in the way that you relate, possibly even your mind and your education, things that were buried deep, stuff that you may have hidden because for some folks that have this placement, depending upon lots of other things. But for some folks, they may have had learning disabilities at one point in time. They may have had where like their energy was stuck. So information they would get, they couldn't share. They didn't know how to share it because it's associated with wounds, Scorpio energy, with wounds and hurts from the past, right? And vulnerabilities. Okay, vulnerabilities. So it's deeply bonded energy. So people with displacement are going to be really deeply bonded with siblings and neighbors and coworkers. You know, people that that are like peers. So they see them on the regular. They're part of their daily details in some way, right? They end up energetically bonding with them because you end up energetically bonding with them because it's Scorpio and Scorpio can energetically penetrate another person's energy. Yeah. So having Scorpio in the third house, many times when people have this placement, they literally need to hear the words privacy. Not everything is meant to be shared. Right. And not everything is meant for you to know and hear. And that's a difficult placement because with Scorpio there, many times you will hear what other people are thinking. You can hear their thoughts. And so it depends on how long you've been working with this energy in a conscious way. Some of you may understand this and you may say, you know, I've developed a high level of discernment and so I know when to keep my mouth shut, right? Or some of you may be in the situation where you hear it and you say it and it might be something that wasn't supposed to be said, right? It might be something that was literally private. That's a possibility. And so there's that maneuvering. There's that kind of like that balance, that dance of how do I work with this? How do I have access to information that someone didn't tell me? Right. So what happens is with this energy, because it's ruled by Mars and Pluto, and it has that ability to be very assertive, to literally penetrate, to dive deep. Salespeople energy here. They can talk, but they know how to read people on the quick. They think it's because they're looking at all their stuff, all the cues and stuff, but it's Scorpio energy. They're picking up on things that the regular person isn't going to be able to pick up on. They can pick up on people energetically. Okay. So they're going to know things. They're going to be privy to information that most people aren't normally going to be privy to, especially if someone didn't share it with you, if they didn't offer it to you. All right. So there comes that time of understanding that and how to work with it. And there's no secret to it. It's just, you got to learn. You just got to practice. And over time you get better. Now, having an eclipse here means it's a release and a let go over a wound. Okay. So it might be something with siblings. It could be something with a neighbor. It's likely something that's been buried, that's deep down, because it's Scorpio energy. But this cycle is over. Okay. And so the beauty in this is that an eclipse energy says, I no longer value this, because it's Scorpio. It was once a shared value. I no longer value this. So now I'm letting it go and I'm releasing it. Okay. So for some of you, you might be quitting some social platforms because this is in your third house, social platforms. You might be saying, I don't hold this of a value anymore. Right. Or these neighbors, these online neighbors, maybe I'm severing ties because maybe it's just time. Maybe it's just time to leave the past in the past and to move on. Right. But it is shared values. So there's something that you and somebody else valued at one time. And because it's that third house, remember, it can also be coworkers. It can be neighbors. It can even be peers or people that you live with. Like the house that I'm in, I a housemate with a married couple. Right. So there's a lot of like sibling like vibration and peer energy here, because none of us are blood related. Right. At least we better not be. So we then go to the middle of the month. And going on to the middle of the month, we're talking Mercury again. You see, Virgo, your ruler, Mercury, comes up because you had an eclipse in the sign in the house of Mercury. And now we're talking about the Mercury retrograde. And the Mercury retrograde is now ended. Mercury is now moving direct. And this is like the 14th and the 15th of May. And typically when Mercury's done retrograding, our thinking chills down a little bit. So this is good news for you because you're already going to have Mercury on 10. And if it's your ruler, some people might have sleepless nights or, like just the mind's not turning off, right? The constant need to just consume information. And that's when Mercury retrograde, it goes on overdrive because it's more intense. Okay. It just doesn't go to sleep. But now with it out of the overdrive, now it goes into the regular direct momentum. It is feeling a little bit more balanced and not as extreme. And it loves information. It loves options. And so the only way it feels like it can get options is by to consider all these other different things and to get as much material in front of it, right? Keeping track, writing lists and charts and calendars and statistics. And I'm logging all this down. This happened this and this time, right? Like the scribe, that's Mercury. keeping track of what's going on. That's Mercury. Okay. And so doing that up here, even if you're not doing it here, trying to do it here for some of us, right? So it's direct, but the recommendation is to not make any major decisions yet because it's still going over like that shadow zone area. Okay. Now I have 2 videos, a deep dive video on the Mercury retrograde. Go watch it if you haven't, because it'll give you more information. It'll give you the degrees that Mercury goes through the retrograde. It'll give you the dates, and it'll give you the dates, the end of the shadow zone. And so for you in this reading, I would wait to the end of the month. Go watch that video for the exact date, though. But it is the end of the month, the end of May, when it gets out of that shadow zone. And the reason that's important, again, it's all in that video, and I hate repeating myself, but it's important because it means we're still likely going over stuff. Like things are still tentative. So then once they're out of that shadow zone, it's like, okay, all systems go. You follow? So it just makes more sense. It makes more sense to just kind of, if you have to schedule, to wait until after that time. So this leads us up to the 19th of May. Now, the 19th of May, we have a new beginning because it's a new moon energy and it's in Taurus. This, again, is opposite of Scorpio, where you had your release and your ending, your full moon energy in your 3rd house of communication. Something is closing, you're releasing something. South node eclipse. Right. That's why this full moon was an eclipse, because it's next to the South node in Scorpio. So we're leaving the past behind. We're healing and we're moving on. And the opposite of that is Taurus. And so on the 19th, new moon in Taurus, my love, my values, my creature comforts. Do I value you? What do I value? Self-worth, self-love, Taurus energy. Venus rules this. Venus. So it's crazy, right? The planets, Venus and Mercury get along, first of all. They're like siblings, sisters, I'm calling them. And so they're constantly communicating at this time. So this is good thing. I like this because even though it's a retrograde in Mercury and we're being cautioned to wait, they're still communicating. So they're still saying, okay, this is changing, but I'm constantly giving you the update so that you're constantly apprised of how the changes are shaping up. Right. So this is not going to be as crazy for me anyway, in my mind, as I'm thinking about it. It won't be as crazy of a retrograde because we have both Venus and Mercury in Taurus energy operating together. Right. And that's good because they get along. So when we talk about a new moon and we know that the nodes are here, the north node in Taurus is here, right? It's around 3 degrees of Taurus. It's about my values and who is part of my future. It's a new beginning based on my creature comforts, my income, right? Banking, we know banking is a big deal. And so for many of you that let go and that release in Scorpio energy at the beginning of the month, shared values, there might be some releasings and some letting goes, because a lot of folks with their shared values, Scorpio energy is like old money, right? Stuff that's been around for a long time, old energy, right? And when I say energy, because money is energy, we think of the banking and all that's been going on, SVB and all that stuff, right? The tech banks and all that. So banking, something new is happening, a new beginning, a new value. Virgo, this happens in your 9th house. This is your 9th house of traveling long distances. This is the 9th house of I'm publishing something. Are you a teacher? Is there religion and spirituality involved in what you do? Because you have Taurus energy in your 9th house. Do you work in some way with Taurus energy? And remember, the interesting thing about Taurus and Mercury, Venus and Mercury, right? Taurus is known to rule the spoken word, rules the spoken word. Mercury is connected to Hermes, messenger of the gods. So when you have Taurus in your 9th house, the house of God, the house of religion, the house of spirituality, you probably have some either very, very idealistic and traditional values about spirituality and religion, or You may be way more progressive than that, right? You may even say something like, the earth is my church, right? Because nature, in the material form, nature is the most powerful expression, the most powerful proof of divine, right? Something tangible, material is nature. So when you're out in nature, whether you're gardening or anytime you're in nature, maybe you go for walks, who knows? Maybe you just like to look at birds, whatever. There's something there, something almost mystical and magical, but Virgo will rationalize things and be able to connect the dots, and it might take all the beauty. I shouldn't say beauty, but it can be just so idealistic because it's that ninth house. So definitely something almost ethereal where it's not even in the 3D material realm, right? So for some of you, you might make money, whether you're a preacher. Maybe you wanted to be a preacher at one time. Maybe you work for the church in some way, right? But it's Taurus energy and it's a new moon. Now, this new moon degree is what matters, and it's at 28 degrees and 25 minutes. Check in your chart for that degree, 28 degrees and 25 minutes, because you're right. For some of you, those degrees are so high up there, they could dip into your 10th house. If you don't know and you want to know, comment below. If you don't know and you need to know, comment below. I will probably ask you for your digits so that I can look at your chart and find out for you which house it's in, and then we can go from there. But just remember, it's based on your values. And remember, new moons are times of new beginnings and a powerful time, a very powerful time of setting our intentions, because it's when the sun and the moon, the father and the mother, it's when they're together. And this is when we can make our dreams come true. Ninth house, Jupiter, make your dreams come true. Wow. This can be a reality for some of you. Absolutely. Set your intentions. I will even give you the time of the new moon. It's at 10:53 a.m. Central Time. That's for me, where I'm located, adjust for where you live. Okay. So Virgo, I know I talked about a lot. I know I might, I might have went too deep for some of you. I would love to hear your feedback, but I think it's fascinating how Mercury and Virgo are just as strong in the month of May as our Mars and Pluto, because Mars and Pluto ruled that release and that ending at the beginning of the month, and Scorpio energy being the opposite of Taurus energy, right? And you having that releasing and that ending in your third house, which is Mercury. So it's a really fascinating time. I would really love to hear from you and to hear how this has shown up for you in your life. Because if that eclipse 1458, if you have something exactly at those degrees, this already began for you. This began 6 months ago already. And because it's so deep, some of you might not have even been aware that it began at that time. Because when things begin in a deep way, it has to do with our emotions, but stuff that's buried, stuff we're not even aware of, stuff that we were kind of afraid to even look at. You see? So it might not be super obvious. Whenever Pluto works, it works at such a deep level that sometimes it's those undercurrents, and they aren't real physical material necessarily, because we're dealing with their thoughts, right? And the way we think and relate and communicate. Okay. So yeah, let me know. And I would love, love, love to get your feedback on this video. And if you need help, remember, comment below. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Happy May 2023, Virgo. Below the video, I'll have all the degrees for those of you who like to pay attention to the degrees in your chart. Again, if you don't know and you want to know, just comment below.